Why do those who crave power rarely keep it, while those who seem indifferent to morality, praise, and approval rise quietly and remain untouchable? This question sits at the core of Machiavelli's first and most ignored rule of power, a rule so uncomfortable that most people instinctively reject it before they ever understand it. Not because it is false, but because accepting it requires surrendering a comforting lie about how the world works and who you believe yourself to be inside it. This rule is not written in slogans or commandments. It is embedded in history, in blood, in the ruins of fallen rulers who believed virtue alone would protect them. Machiavelli's first rule of power is this: people will always judge you by outcomes, not intentions, and they will abandon you the moment your weakness costs them something. Everything else flows from this truth, and almost everyone ignores it because it demands emotional maturity most never develop. From childhood, you were taught that intention defines character, that meaning matters more than result, that being good is enough, even if you fail. But Machiavelli was not writing for children or for moral comfort. He was writing for those responsible for stability, survival, and control in a world that does not pause to consider how pure your heart was when everything collapsed. The cold realism of this rule is what makes it powerful. People do not follow leaders because those leaders meant well. They follow those who deliver security, order, advantage, and continuity. The moment you fail to provide these things, your virtues will be reinterpreted as weaknesses. Your kindness becomes incompetence. Your mercy becomes softness. Your honesty becomes naivety. This transformation happens instantly and without remorse. Machiavelli observed that human loyalty is conditional, even when people swear it is not. Loyalty survives only while alignment exists between your power and their self-interest. When that alignment breaks, loyalty dissolves, and people rationalize the betrayal afterward by rewriting the story. They tell themselves you deserved it, that you failed them, that they had no choice. This is not cruelty, it is psychological self-preservation. Most people ignore this rule because they desperately want to believe they are loved for who they are, not what they provide. Machiavelli would call this a fatal confusion between intimacy and power. Power relationships are not built on unconditional acceptance. They are built on perceived necessity. The moment you stop being necessary, you become optional. The moment you become optional, you are vulnerable. This is why Machiavelli warned rulers never to base their authority on gratitude. Gratitude is emotional and temporary. It fades faster than resentment. People forget favors quickly but remember constraints vividly. A ruler who depends on gratitude is gambling their future on human memory, and human memory is selective, emotional, and unreliable. The first rule of power demands that you understand this without bitterness. Not everyone who abandons you is evil. They are responding to incentives. The cold mind advantage is recognizing incentives instead of moralizing outcomes. When you moralize, you blind yourself. When you observe, you adapt. This rule applies far beyond thrones and states. It governs workplaces, relationships, social hierarchies, and even families. People may care about you, but they care more about their security, status, and survival. When these come into conflict, affection yields. Machiavelli did not condemn this. He designed strategy around it. Ignoring this rule leads to a predictable pattern of self-destruction. The well-intentioned leader overextends mercy, avoids decisive action, delays hard choices, and hopes goodwill will compensate. For a time, things appear calm, but beneath the surface, respect erodes, discipline weakens, opportunists sense softness. Then comes the crisis, and in the crisis, the leader discovers that love without fear does not hold. Fear, in Machiavellian terms, is not terror, it is consequence. It is the understanding that certain lines cannot be crossed without cost. When consequences are absent or inconsistent, power leaks away invisibly. The first rule of power insists that consequence must be reliable, not emotional. People can forgive severity, they do not forgive unpredictability. Most people ignore this because they confuse firmness with cruelty. They fear being seen as harsh. Machiavelli would argue that being perceived as weak is far more dangerous than being perceived as firm. Weakness invites challenge. Challenge invites escalation. Escalation invites collapse. The cold mind interrupts this chain early, before force becomes necessary. Another reason this rule is ignored is ego. People want to be admired for their morality. They want their goodness to be visible and acknowledged. Machiavelli understood that this desire is exploitable. Anyone who needs to be seen as good can be manipulated through guilt, praise, or moral pressure. The cold mind does not reject morality, it rejects dependence on moral validation. To follow the first rule of power, you must accept that you will sometimes be misunderstood, that your restraint will be misread as indifference, that your silence will be interpreted as calculation, that your decisiveness will be labeled arrogance. Machiavelli would consider this a small price for stability. Reputation can be managed. Power once lost is rarely recovered. This is where the rule becomes personal. The first rule of power does not ask whether you are a good person. It asks whether you are effective. Dubbage. Either your presence stabilizes or destabilizes the system around you. Whether people are better protected under your authority or exposed by your hesitation, people do not consciously think this way, but they feel it. They feel safety or anxiety, order or chaos. Their loyalty follows these feelings, not your explanations. You can explain your intentions endlessly. You cannot explain away failure. Failure reframes everything retroactively. Once you fail, your past virtues are reinterpreted as flaws. Your caution becomes cowardice. Your patience becomes delay. Your empathy becomes indulgence. This is not fair, but it is consistent. The cold mind advantage is preparing for this reality instead of being shocked by it. Machiavelli's first rule demands internal strength before external authority. You must be willing to carry the emotional weight of decisions that will not be universally loved. You must tolerate disapproval without scrambling for approval. You must resist the urge to soften necessary actions to preserve your self-image. This is where many retreat. They sense the weight and turn away. They choose comfort over clarity. They tell themselves power is corrupting, that ambition is immoral, that detachment is inhuman. Machiavelli would see these beliefs as defenses against responsibility. Responsibility is heavy because it means accepting that your choices shape other people's lives. The cold mind does not escape this weight, it accepts it deliberately. It understands that refusing power does not eliminate harm. It simply hands power to someone else, often someone less restrained. The first rule of power also reveals why good intentions so often produce disastrous outcomes. Intentions do not structure incentives. They do not enforce boundaries. They do not deter threats. Without structure, systems decay. Machiavelli saw states collapse, not because rulers were evil, but because they were naive. Naivety is punished more harshly than malice because it invites chaos. Chaos harms everyone, especially the innocent. The cold mind advantage is preventing chaos even when prevention requires discomfort. This is the moral paradox Machiavelli forces you to confront. If you ignore this rule, you will be liked briefly and discarded eventually. If you follow it, you may be criticized, misunderstood, even feared, but you will remain standing, and standing is the prerequisite for doing any good at all. This is why Machiavelli placed effectiveness above appearance, consequence above confession, and stability above sentiment. Not because he despised morality, but because he understood that morality without power is fragile and easily erased by those who do not share it. The first rule of power is not a license for cruelty. It is a warning against self-deception. It tells you that the world will not protect you because you meant well. It will not reward you for being pure. It will only respond to what you actually do and what you allow. Once you truly absorb this rule, something inside you shifts. You stop asking how to be seen as good and start asking how to remain effective without becoming destructive. You stop confusing kindness with weakness and strength with brutality. You begin to see power not as domination, but as responsibility enforced through clarity. This understanding is uncomfortable. It strips away excuses. It removes the shelter of moral innocence. But it gives you something far more valuable in return. It gives you the ability to endure. Once the first rule is truly understood, denial becomes impossible. You begin to see how deeply it governs behavior, not just in rulers and leaders, but in ordinary lives that believe themselves untouched by power. The illusion that power is only political is one of the most effective lies ever. Old. Power exists wherever decisions affect outcomes, wherever someone's actions shape the security, status, or future of another. That means power is present in every workplace, every relationship, every hierarchy, every silent negotiation where one person waits and another decides. Machiavelli's first rule continues to operate whether you acknowledge it or not. People align with strength because strength reduces uncertainty. They detach from weakness because weakness threatens stability. This is not conscious cruelty, it is instinct. Humans evolve to seek protection, advantage, and predictability. When a leader, a partner, a parent, or an authority figure begins to feel unreliable, the emotional bond fractures quietly long before it breaks publicly. This is where most people misinterpret betrayal. They experience it as sudden, shocking, immoral. Machiavelli would tell you it was slow, predictable, and signaled long in advance. Betrayal rarely begins with hatred. It begins with doubt. Doubt about competence, doubt about resolve, doubt about whether staying loyal still makes sense. Once doubt enters, rationalizations follow. The cold mind advantage is noticing doubt before it hardens into decision. People ignore this because noticing doubt requires humility. It requires admitting that your intentions may not be enough, that your effort may not translate into results, that your self-image as a good person does not shield you from judgment. Machiavelli stripped away this comfort mercilessly. He did not ask whether you tried, he asked whether you succeeded. Success, in Machiavellian terms, is not glory, it is continuity. The system continues to function, order holds, authority remains intact. The people under you feel safer with you than without you. The moment that equation reverses, your fall has already begun, even if no one has told you yet. This is why Machiavelli despised leaders who ruled through softness alone. Softness feels humane in the short term, but it creates long-term instability. When boundaries blur, opportunists emerge. When opportunists emerge, conflict increases. When conflict increases, harsher measures become inevitable. The cruelty the soft leader tried to avoid returns multiplied, inflicted not by choice, but by necessity. The first rule of power demands early firmness precisely to avoid later brutality. This is one of the great paradoxes of authority. People who cannot tolerate being firm early often end up being violent late. People who cannot say no at the beginning eventually lose the ability to choose at all. Most people ignore this rule because they confuse firmness with emotional hardness. They imagine coldness as the absence of empathy. Machiavelli's cold mind is not devoid of empathy, it is not ruled by it. Empathy informs judgment, but it does not replace it. The cold mind feels the human cost of decisions and proceeds anyway when the alternative is worse. This distinction is subtle and terrifying. It requires the ability to hold two truths at once: that an action may hurt someone and still be necessary, that an outcome may be unfair and still be preferable to chaos, that you may be judged harshly and still be right. The emotionally driven mind cannot tolerate this tension. It seeks moral clarity, even when reality offers none. Machiavelli understood that reality rarely offers moral clarity. It offers trade-offs. The first rule of power is learning to choose the least destructive trade-off, and then enduring the emotional consequences of that choice without collapsing into self-justification or cruelty. Self-justification is another trap. Leaders who constantly explain themselves reveal insecurity. They attempt to win forgiveness preemptively. Machiavelli would see this as erosion of authority. Author: E.T. does not beg to be understood. It acts, then allows results to speak. Results silence criticism more effectively than explanations ever could. People may criticize you while things are going well. They will forgive you when things are stable. Stability is the great absolver. This is why Machiavelli insisted that rulers prioritize security above reputation. Reputation follows security. Security does not follow reputation. Those who ignore this rule chase approval and lose both approval and power. Those who follow it accept temporary disapproval and gain long-term control. The cold mind advantage is being willing to be disliked today to remain effective tomorrow. This willingness requires emotional independence. If your self-worth depends on being liked, you will hesitate when firmness is required. You will soften decisions. You will delay action. You will compromise clarity. Others will sense this. They may not articulate it, but they will feel it. And feeling precedes action. Once people feel uncertainty around you, they begin to hedge. They seek alternatives. They build parallel alliances. They reduce dependence on you. None of this is announced. It happens quietly, invisibly, until one day you discover that your authority is hollow. The title remains. The power does not. Machiavelli saw this hollowing again and again. Kings with crowns but no control. Leaders with followers but no loyalty. Fathers with authority in name and irrelevance in fact. The first rule of power exists to prevent this decay. It also applies inwardly. Many people lose control of their own lives because they ignore the same principle within themselves. They make promises they do not keep. They tolerate behaviors they claim to oppose. They indulge impulses they later regret. Over time, their own mind stops respecting their intentions. Discipline erodes, identity fragments, internal authority collapses. The cold mind advantage restores internal authority by aligning intention with consequence. When you decide something, you enforce it. When you draw a boundary, you maintain it. When you fail, you correct quickly. Your mind learns that your decisions matter. This internal consistency becomes external presence. People can sense when someone governs themselves. Self-governance is the foundation of all power. Machiavelli admired rulers who were disciplined, not because discipline looked virtuous, but because it made them predictable to themselves and formidable to others. An undisciplined ruler is a liability. An undisciplined mind is a danger. Ignoring the first rule also leads to another form of blindness. The belief that being morally right guarantees moral outcomes. History proves otherwise. Entire nations have collapsed under leaders who were ethically sincere but strategically incompetent. Their intentions did not save the innocent. Their purity did not prevent suffering. Machiavelli refused to romanticize such failures. This is why his philosophy is uncomfortable. It refuses to console. It demands competence. It demands foresight. It demands that you care about outcomes more than narratives. Most people would rather feel righteous than be responsible. Responsibility is lonely. When you accept the first rule of power, you accept that praise and blame will be uneven. You will be blamed for outcomes you could not prevent and praised for outcomes you did not intend. You must learn to live without emotional symmetry. The cold mind accepts this asymmetry as the price of influence. Another reason people ignore this rule is fear of becoming like those they despise. They worry that prioritizing effectiveness will turn them into tyrants. Machiavelli would answer that refusing power does not prevent tyranny. It only ensures that power falls into the hands of those who do not hesitate. The question is never whether power will exist. It always does. The question is who will wield it and with what level of self-awareness. The cold mind advantage is not domination. It is stewardship under harsh conditions. Stewardship requires endurance. You must withstand criticism without hardening into cruelty. You must endure pressure without collapsing into appeasement. You must tolerate ambiguity without paralysis. These capacities are rare. They cannot be taught through slogans. They are forged through exposure to uncomfortable truth. The first rule of power exposes one such truth relentlessly. People will stay with you as long as staying benefits them more than leaving. This does not make people bad, it makes them human. Once you accept this, you stop taking disloyalty personally and start designing systems that reduce the incentive for it. Incentives are more powerful than appeals. Structure outlasts sentiment. Machiavelli knew this. That is why he focused on institutions, laws, and consequences rather than speeches and virtues. The cold mind follows the same logic in smaller arenas. You design your environment so that desired behavior is rewarded and destructive behavior is costly. This applies even to how you allow others to treat you. Tolerance teaches people what they can get away with. Silence communicates permission. Delay signals uncertainty. The cold mind is attentive to these signals because it understands how quickly patterns form. Patterns are destiny in slow motion. If you tolerate small disrespect, larger disrespect follows. If you excuse minor incompetence, major failure arrives. If you forgive without correction, escalation is inevitable. The first rule of power demands that you intervene early while intervention is still light. Light intervention is misunderstood as harshness by those who benefit from disorder. They will test. They will accuse you of rigidity. They will appeal to emotion. Machiavelli would tell you to expect this. Resistance is proof that boundaries matter. Boundaries create form. Form creates order. Order creates safety. Safety creates loyalty. Loyalty stabilizes power. This chain begins with the courage to enforce limits. Ignore the first rule, and the chain breaks at the beginning. As you internalize this, you may feel yourself becoming quieter, less eager to explain, less reactive to accusation. This is not indifference, it is focus. Your attention shifts from being perceived correctly to acting correctly, from defending your character to protecting your position. Position is not ego, it is leverage. With leverage, you can act. Without it, you are reduced to commentary. Machiavelli had no respect for commentary that changed nothing. The first rule of power is not glamorous. It does not make you feel virtuous. It makes you effective. That is why it is ignored by those who want to feel good more than they want to be responsible. But once you truly accept it, you stop being surprised by the world. You stop asking why people act the way they do. You start asking how to move within that reality without being destroyed by it. And this is where the cold mind advantage deepens into something irreversible. You no longer cling to illusions of unconditional loyalty. You no longer gamble your future on gratitude. You no longer mistake kindness for authority. You begin to understand that power does not forgive weakness, but it respects clarity. And clarity, once established, changes everything. Once clarity hardens, the first rule of power stops feeling like a lesson and starts feeling like gravity. You no longer debate it. You no longer test whether it is true. You see it operating everywhere, relentlessly, without emotion, without exception. And the most unsettling real is that Ion arrives quietly. The rule does not care whether you agree with it. It does not bend to your values. It does not pause for your discomfort. It simply operates. This is the stage where most people retreat, not outwardly, but inwardly. They nod at the idea, quote it, admire it from a distance, yet refuse to let it alter how they actually behave. They continue to lead softly while expecting strength in return. They continue to give trust where no leverage exists. They continue to tolerate erosion while telling themselves they are being humane. Machiavelli would recognize this instantly as fear disguised as virtue. Fear of being judged, fear of being disliked, fear of being misunderstood, fear of crossing the invisible line between being seen as good and being seen as dangerous. The cold mind understands that this fear is the final chain. Break it, and authority consolidates. Obey it, and power leaks continuously until nothing remains. At this level, the first rule of power reveals its deeper implication. Weakness is never punished immediately, but it is always recorded. People may smile, they may comply, they may praise your intentions, but internally, a ledger is being kept. Each hesitation, each inconsistency, each unaddressed violation is noted, not consciously, not maliciously, but instinctively. And one day, when circumstances tighten, that ledger is consulted. This is why collapse always feels sudden to the one who falls and inevitable to everyone else. From the inside, it feels like betrayal. From the outside, it feels overdue. Machiavelli was obsessed with this asymmetry of perception. He saw rulers shocked by rebellion while their subjects felt relief. The cold mind advantage is never being shocked by outcomes that were years in the making. This awareness forces a painful shift in how you see compassion. Compassion without structure is indulgence. Indulgence without limits is decay. Decay invites correction, and correction is always harsher than prevention. The first rule of power demands preventative discipline, not reactive punishment. This is where moral discomfort intensifies. Preventative discipline feels unfair because it acts before catastrophe. It denies people the chance to prove they would have stopped on their own. But Machiavelli would say history has already run that experiment enough times. People rarely stop themselves when incentives reward continuation. Systems must intervene early or collapse late. Those who ignore this believe in redemption through patience. Machiavelli believed in correction through clarity. He did not deny redemption, he simply refused to gamble stability on hope. Hope is emotional. Structure is reliable. As you integrate this rule more deeply, you start noticing how language changes around power. Weak authority invites negotiation language. Requests replace directives. Apologies replace decisions. Explanations replace outcomes. None of these are wrong in isolation, but together they signal erosion. The cold mind listens not just to what is said, but to how it is said and when. Timing becomes critical. Acting too late is worse than acting imperfectly. Machiavelli valued decisiveness not because it guaranteed correctness, but because it preserved momentum. Momentum stabilizes systems. Drift destabilizes them. When leaders drift, others steer. This is where another illusion shatters, the belief that neutrality preserves safety. Neutrality is interpreted as absence of will. Absence of will invites substitution. Someone else's will fills the vacuum. The first rule of power teaches that vacuums never remain empty. Power abhors hesitation the way nature abhors emptiness. Where authority weakens, alternatives emerge. Informal leaders rise, shadow structures form, loyalty migrates. By the time formal power reacts, the real power has already moved. Machiavelli saw this clearly in failing states, but the same principle applies to smaller systems, teams, families, relationships. When one person stops setting direction, another begins. When boundaries dissolve, someone redraws them. When standards fade, new ones replace them, often harsher than the original. Those who ignore the first rule often believe they are avoiding conflict. In reality, they are postponing it and making it uglier. Deferred conflict accumulates interest. The cold mind pays early and avoids bankruptcy later. This requires a redefinition of kindness. Kindness is not softness. Kindness is preventing future harm even when prevention feels uncomfortable. The emotionally driven mind equates kindness with immediate relief. The cold mind equates kindness with long-term stability. Stability is invisible when it works. People rarely praise what does not collapse. They notice only when things break. This is why effective power is often thankless. Machiavelli understood this and accepted it. He did not expect gratitude from systems he kept intact. He expected endurance. Endurance becomes the metric by which you judge yourself, not applause, not approval, not moral affirmation. Endurance. Does the structure still hold? Does order remain? Are threats contained? Is the future more secure than the past? When these questions guide action, your behavior changes in ways others may not immediately understand. You intervene sooner. You speak less emotionally. You tolerate less ambiguity. You stop negotiating fundamentals. This can feel harsh to those accustomed to flexibility without consequence. They will test you. Tests are inevitable. Tests are not rebellion, they are calibration. People need to know where you stand. The cold mind welcomes tests because they reveal weak points early. Passing tests quietly consolidates authority. Failing tests invites escalation. This is another reason people ignore the first rule. Failing tests feels easier in the moment. Saying yes avoids discomfort. Avoiding confrontation preserves harmony temporarily. But harmony built on concession is fragile. It shatters under pressure. Pressure is always coming. Machiavelli never assumed favorable conditions would last. Fortune turns, resources shrink, external threats emerge, internal tensions surface. The cold mind prepares for pressure during calm periods. The warm mind relaxes. Preparation looks like firmness when firmness seems unnecessary. It looks like discipline when indulgence feels safe. It looks like structure when freedom feels deserved. This is why effective power is often criticized during peace and missed during crisis. Machiavelli's first rule is ultimately about readiness. Being ready to act, ready to enforce, ready to decide without seeking permission from emotion. Readiness is not aggression, it is posture. It signals that collapse will not be tolerated. As you embody this, you may feel increasingly out of sync with those around you. They will ask why you are so strict, so reserved, so unmoved. They will mistake composure for coldness. Let them. Composure protects far more people than emotional display ever could. This stage also demands something most are unwilling to give up. the fantasy of being universally understood. You will not be. Those who benefit from your firmness will rarely thank you. Those who are constrained by it will resent you. The cold mind accepts this asymmetry without bitterness. Bitterness is another form of weakness. It clouds judgment and invites overcorrection. Machiavelli warned against ruling from resentment. Resentment seeks revenge, not stability. The cold mind acts from calculation, not grievance. Calculation does not mean lack of feeling. It means feeling does not dictate direction. You may feel doubt and still act. You may feel empathy and still enforce. You may feel fatigue and still remain consistent. Consistency is what others rely on when emotion fluctuates. At this depth, the first rule of power becomes inseparable from self-respect. You stop tolerating behaviors in others that you would not tolerate in yourself. You stop excusing repeated violations. You stop negotiating with patterns that have already revealed their outcome. Patterns are truth over time. Machiavelli trusted patterns more than promises. The cold mind does the same. It watches what repeats, not what is claimed. Repetition reveals intent far more accurately than language. This perspective can feel isolating because it strips away comforting explanations. You no longer tell yourself stories about why people acted the way they did. You see incentives, pressures, and choices. You see structure, not sentiment. Seeing structure gives you leverage. Leverage gives you choice. Choice gives you agency. Agency is the core of power. By now, you understand why most people ignore Machiavelli's first rule. It demands discipline where indulgence feels kinder. It demands firmness where softness feels moral. It demands acceptance of judgment without the shield of intention. It demands that you grow up, and growth at this level is irreversible. At the final threshold, the cold mind stops learning rules and starts becoming one. What once felt like strategy now feels like instinct. You no longer consciously recall Machiavelli's words, you embody their logic. Power is no longer something you reach for. It is something others sense before you speak, before you decide, before you move. And this is where the true weight of Machiavelli's first rule settles, not as an idea, but as a permanent transformation of how you exist in the world. By now, you understand. That power is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not seek validation. It does not beg to be seen as good. Real power is quiet, dense, and undeniable. It compresses the space around it. People adjust themselves instinctively. Conversations shift. Behavior tightens. Boundaries become visible without being named. This is not intimidation. It is coherence. It is the absence of contradiction between what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you enforce. Most people never reach this state because it requires sacrificing the final comfort, the need to be morally admired. Machiavelli knew that admiration is volatile. It turns quickly, especially when circumstances change. Those who build their identity on being praised become hostages to public mood. Those who build their identity on effectiveness remain stable when moods turn hostile. At this stage, you see clearly how the world quietly tests everyone. Not once, but constantly. Every delayed decision, every unaddressed violation, every inconsistency is interpreted as information. People are not waiting for you to fail dramatically. They are watching for micro-signals of decay. The cold mind does not fear these moments. It respects them. It understands that being tested is proof of relevance. Only those who matter are tested. You also see the final illusion dissolve, the belief that power must corrupt. Power does not corrupt. Lack of self-knowledge does. When people avoid power, it does not disappear. It migrates. It concentrates in fewer hands, often colder, less restrained, less reflective than yours could have been. Machiavelli never asked whether power was dangerous. He asked who would wield it if those capable refused. The cold mind advantage is not domination. It is stewardship enforced by clarity. It is knowing when mercy strengthens order and when it erodes it. It is knowing when silence preserves author. It and when speech restores it. It is knowing that not every injustice can be corrected, but every instability must be addressed. By now, you no longer confuse being feared with being hated. Fear, properly understood, is simply respect for consequence. It is the awareness that actions matter, that boundaries exist, that systems respond. This form of fear does not destroy trust. It creates predictability. and predictability is the foundation of security. Security is what people truly seek, even when they claim to want freedom above all else. Freedom without structure feels exhilarating briefly and terrifying eventually. The cold mind provides structure without spectacle. It gives people room to move without allowing collapse. This balance is rare. That is why true authority is rare. At this depth, loneliness becomes real. Not emotional loneliness, but structural loneliness. You cannot fully explain your decisions. You cannot reveal every calculation. Transparency, taken too far, weakens authority. You learn to carry knowledge quietly. You learn to let others misunderstand you. You learn that being alone at the top is not a punishment, it is a requirement. Machiavelli understood this solitude intimately. He wrote not for crowds, but for those willing to stand apart from comforting illusions. He knew that most would read his words defensively, cherry-pick them, or condemn them. He wrote anyway. That too is power, speaking truth without needing agreement. You now see how history is shaped less by ideals than by those willing to enforce structure when ideals falter. Every stable era rests on unseen discipline. Every collapse follows prolonged indulgence. This pattern does not change, only the names and costumes do. The cold mind does not romanticize this reality. It accepts it. Acceptance brings calm. Calm brings precision. Precision prevents excess. This is the quiet paradox. Detachment, when disciplined, produces restraint, not cruelty. You may feel the temptation now to soften this understanding, to reassure yourself that you will be different, that you will somehow transcend these laws. Machiavelli would urge you to resist that temptation. Laws of power do not disappear because you are well-intentioned. They become more dangerous when ignored by those who believe themselves exempt. The final integration of the first rule is this: you stop trying to be liked, feared, or admired and focus instead on being necessary. Necessary to stability, necessary to order, necessary to continuity. Necessity anchors authority more deeply than emotion ever could. When you become necessary, opposition becomes cautious, loyalty becomes pragmatic, chaos looks elsewhere for opportunity. This is not because you are ruthless, but because you are consistent. Consistency is the language power speaks fluently. Now, you stand at a decision point that no philosophy can make for you. You can consume these ideas as entertainment, nodding along, feeling momentarily sharpened, then return to comfortable habits that slowly drain your influence. Or you can allow this understanding to cost you something real: your need for approval, your tolerance for ambiguity, your willingness to delay hard choices. Machiavelli's knowledge is not dangerous because it encourages evil. It is dangerous because it removes excuses. Once you see clearly, you are responsible for what you tolerate, what you enable, and what you refuse to confront. Ignorance no longer protects you. So ask yourself, not emotionally but honestly, when pressure comes, will you retreat into intention or will you stand on consequence? When boundaries are tested, will you explain or will you enforce? When order begins to fray, will you hope or will you act? The cold mind advantage is not given, it is claim. Moment by moment, through decisions that feel heavy and often thankless. But those decisions shape futures. They prevent collapses that never make headlines. They protect people who will never know how close they came to chaos. If you have followed this far, then you already feel the shift, the discomfort, the clarity, the quiet resolve forming beneath the surface. Do not waste it, do not dilute it, do not apologize for it. Think like Machiavelli, not to dominate others but to master yourself. Let go of the need to be seen as good and commit instead to being effective, stable, and unshakable. Carry the weight others avoid. Enforce what must be enforced. Decide when others hesitate, because in a world that rewards illusion and punishes weakness without mercy, the cold mind is not a luxury. It is your responsibility. Step into it.